Welcome back to the Building the Future podcast. This is your host, Brett Thorne. And on this episode, I meet with Jennifer Castenson of Buildxact. Jennifer and I first connected last fall as she was working on an article titled 2021's Top Tech Trends in the Building Supply Chain, which was one of many articles she's produced for Forbes. From that, we decided to have a follow-up conversation and continue our tech talks and how it's affecting and evolving our industry. Furthermore, we talk about how Buildxact is streamlining and networking the communication channels all throughout the construction process. Now, if you want to find out more about Jennifer, I'd recommend you follow her on LinkedIn as she is very active. And I'll put a link to her page in the show notes. And if you want to find out more about Buildxact and the products they have to offer, I'll also include a link for their website. Now, I know you're going to get a lot from this conversation, as I did, as together we are building the future. This is the Building the Future podcast. I am your host, the lumberjack, Brett Thorne. On this show, we explore topics including construction, building materials, real estate, remodeling, the housing market, industry news, new products and trends, technology, government, everything you need for building the future. I think the pandemic has kind of forced our hand in the industry a little bit to adapt to technology. Because I never, prior to the pandemic, remember seeing any kind of Zoom conferences or any kind of webinars that our industry was putting out. Now, these are things that other industries were doing, but you just didn't really see them much in our industry. And now they're everywhere, which is great. I mean, silver lining right there. Hey, you know what? We're now in the 21st century.
We're getting there. So I would say this is the only industry where I see, and I talk to other industries just to give comparisons and whatever else. But this is the only industry I see that still puts a fax number on their email signature.
Isn't it funny? I mean, the fact that people still rely on fax.
Yeah, I mean it's really antiquated, and I mean our software is it's technology for a non-technical group, right? So we're talking to builders and dealers and digitizing a relationship that has never been that's so new for them. And they're so reluctant to make that change. And we are talking to both those audiences all the time. And part of our software does the takeoffs and the estimates. Well, we ask them, how are you doing those now? And we hear
pencil and paper,
napkin,
2x4 comes in on a 2x. Here's my material list.
Yeah. So, Excel spreadsheets. And then the dealers get like heart palpitations thinking that they won't have people talking to people. And if they realize the efficiencies that they could create or the value that their people could create beyond just being in front of the customer and getting maybe screamed at or whatever, the accuracy that could then ensue instead of, making human error. It's very interesting. It's a strange dynamic. But I think what we're hearing also is that there are a lot of folks who are much more comfortable with technology, who are getting hired, who are starting these jobs, and who will embrace it way faster. But yeah, so that's got a long runway.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, and a part of it too, and actually I just recorded a podcast and we were talking about the dynamics of the workforce in our industry and how many people we have that are tenured people, which is great to have that experience and that knowledge. All these people have been in it so long, but our industry has done a terrible job about building a bench and about recruiting young. And it dates all the way back to, you look at the Great Recession we had. Prior to that, things were going good, the '05s, the '06s, '07s, and then the market fell out '08. And then obviously our industry just took a beating. So the 8, 9, 10, 11, I mean, we completely just anybody that was new to the industry, that was young, that didn't have much experience, that had financial obligations. I mean, they all exited the industry. They either got laid off or they exited on their own because they couldn't make any money. They found other industries, and we never backfilled with any youth at all. So all those people that would be in their, at 40s now, that were probably in the 25 to 30 range then, that would be the leaders of our industry now, none of them, they don't exist because they left. And we have not done a great job as an industry in really selling what we do. I mean, how many opportunities there are in our industry. And because you look at, there's so many different avenues, whether it's on the labor side, the construction, the design, the build, the supply side, the manufacturing side, there's just so much opportunity there. But we really haven't done a great job of selling that. And it's caught up to us now. I mean, this pandemic showed us that. I mean, you look at, I look at all the trades, they're screaming for help. You look at all the LBM dealers are screaming for help. Everybody is really hurting because there is no bench. And we're starting to see a little bit of a tide change there, because I think the cost of getting projects done, because the unavailability of labor, now you're starting to see, and I've laughed about it, but I said, when you start seeing contractors or electricians or HVAC people making doctors' wages and attorneys' fees, then you're going to see people start to flow back into this industry.
Yeah, and another thing that that has become very evident in our industry is the lack of diversity. And so I know many organizations are trying to tackle that right now, but it's a glaring issue. The last call I was on this morning was with a group that is trying to figure out how to get more MBE contractors and subcontractors into the local government projects. But I think that, and the training that needs to ensue. A lot of the MBE contractors and subcontractors are getting into the industry for the very first time. They're seeing an opportunity because a lot of the government contracts are requiring a certain number of MBEs. But regardless of what they require, there's a lot of talent out there that could be utilized, and we need the labor. So wherever it comes from, it would be a great addition to the industry. But like I said, it is a glaring issue right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the things that I've been on with a lot of my shows is, women industry, talking about the lack of diversity. I mean, women make up less than 10% of our industry, but yet they're more than 50% of the population. So it's just a little bit of an offset there. But that's a big topic too, is just how do we appeal to them? How do we market to them to let them know that there's just so much here that can be done?
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't know if you saw in the article, and I wanted to go back and kind of dig into this a little bit more, but Steve Turner from Bring Back the Trades was saying that a lot of positions now in the trade industry require some sort of education. And it's something that hasn't happened before, but it's because of all the computer and technology that is, now getting, I would say merging into our industry. So it's something that's never happened before, right? I mean, trades you could just enter in from high school, but now some of it's going to require a different set of skills because of all the computer. I mean, data is like so important right now. Creating training programs. The training programs are all online. How are you doing that? How are you facilitating that? How are you leveraging that to attract and retain workforce? It's all a big part of what we need to be focused on.
Oh, absolutely. And let's face it, I mean, if we're truly going to attract, the younger generations, the people that are going to carry this industry for the next 20, 30 years, we've got to migrate to what they're using. I mean, it's like you talk about your guys with their blueprints. Those guys aren't going to sit down with a set of drawings. I can't even remember what the triangular, the damn triangular rule that has all the different divisions for the different ratios on it, that and a calculator. They're not going to sit down and do that. So
Mhm.
we have got to adapt our business model in order to get them, because otherwise they'll never come to this industry. I mean, they'll just look at it and say, I can go work at Amazon, or I can go work at Google or somewhere else. I mean, just
Way
because,
sexier, way sexier. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And if you want to tell your friends where you working, like how many people want to say, Amazon? Most of them, right? And it stinks because what I've seen is Amazon doesn't always treat people great. So, and what I see in the industry is that it's a very fulfilling career. But yeah, so I would say another thing that I've looked at in the past and talked to other dealers about is gamification. Like, it's something that is great when it's used properly. But how do we use technology to make it fun and interesting for not only people to go to work, but to reach their objectives, to compete with competitors, or to compete internally, to surpass their objectives. So there are a lot of unique and interesting and dynamic ways to use technology to reach business objectives.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I like some of the things we're starting to see in our industry that is adapting to is the AR and the VR stuff. I think that's just really, obviously it's cutting edge for well, maybe not cutting edge for other industries. They've been on it for a while. But now they're starting to utilize it, and you can go in and you can see projects, you can see the core structure and things, to be able to, to look at a house, or to look at a framing package standing there on the job site with a tablet or whatever, and to be able to scan through and see like all the trusses and everything that's in there and say, okay, this is truss number whatever, and to be able to utilize that, I think is such a phenomenal thing. And I truly think that's going to be the future. Well, I mean, we're going to have to start incorporating some of those things in order to stay up with the times. But like you said earlier, the efficiency, what can be done. I mean, gosh, I mean, to be able to find out a mistake, something like that, long before it becomes a major issue to where you can fix it prior to. I mean, because let's face it, I mean, you start going in and you start sheeting stuff and you start enclosing structures, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, we missed a truss, or the truss is in the wrong place. Yeah, that's not an easy fix anymore. But if you can catch it early on using VR, AR augmentation stuff to say, okay, something's not right here, then you could save so many dollars.
Yeah. No, yeah. So actually, that's a really good point. And I've already talked to quite a few architects, but more on commercial projects and stuff, who are
Mhm.
using AR and VR tools not only for the benefit of seeing a product in advance and being able to do like a digital walkthrough and making those corrections before the product is built, but also to it was a huge benefit in a remote workforce. So they had people working remote, where they didn't normally, where they were actually meeting with the developers or the project owners, and they could sit down with the floor plans. But now, in this remote workforce, it was even more critical to have options like this. So that's really unique. And actually, I want to go into the way into the future, and I don't know how far this is in the future, but I'm excited about it. I just curated a story this morning that was talking about 3D printing, and 3D printing, like 90% of our future of the supply chain will be 3D printed. So, and why not, right? Because why couldn't you just print everything instead of having everything in stock? The efficiencies from, and then also from a sustainable equation, all of these things make 3D printing so realistic. Not only will each community have a 3D printer, but like each household will have a 3D printer. So if you need something, then you ask for it on your 3D printer. So,
Will Alexa do that for me?
yeah, right. I mean, I don't know how far off we are from that, right? Because I know there are so many things that are already being 3D printed. My husband, it works on manufacturing. He's a mechanical engineer, and so he does. He works with Evenflow, which is a company that does baby products. And so he'll put something on the 3D printer overnight, and then be able to look at what it is in the morning. And there are times where in our house something breaks or whatever, and he'll be like, oh well, if we need a new part for that, I'll just 3D print it, and then so we've done that a number of times. But baby steps for our industry. So if we're looking at what's futuristic for our industry, I think
we can't even get people to accept wall panels yet. We're still getting a lot of pushback on wall panels.
Right? So baby steps for our industry. But I think that one of the things that we're really excited about at Buildxact is that we just did an integration with Epicor Buildxact. And so with that integration, for the first time, the builder who submits a quote can get on-demand pricing from the dealer. So it's the only software that's offering that. So like when a builder submits it, they're actually getting the true accurate pricing. And so from our customers who are using that are seeing that a 4-hour process is going to 1 hour, and creating those efficiencies that, and in a labor constrained market, are so important. And then where can your salesperson add value? I was talking to another dealer last week at the NRLA show, and they were saying that they don't have an outside sales force anymore. They have an architectural services force, because those folks, they're trying to bring value to their customers with those people. And they've named them differently, and they have different roles and responsibilities, and they're actually going to their customers and they're looking at the plans and they're saying, you could benefit from this, this, and this. And so I think that's where the future's headed, is using technology to take away the administrative stuff, to remove barriers, to create more accuracy, and then allow your company to bring value in different capacities.
Oh yeah, and I can give you a very simple example, which is in the day and age we live in now, is look how much people, especially the older generations, were absolutely against text messaging. They
Yeah.
hated text messaging. But we've got so many builders now that prefer we text message them versus call. Because when they're on the job site, they're like, I don't have time to answer a call. But if you send me a text message, when I get time, when I get off the roof, when I get this nail gun out of my hand, when I finish what I'm doing, I can pick it up, look at the text message, and decide if I need to contact you, if I just need to respond, or if I can handle it later. They said, but if the phone rings, that's a problem. But text message is great. I mean, we've had so many people that are contractors and stuff that have migrated to that. And I remember, a lot of times people always said, oh, don't text me, call. But now that is such a critical thing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, one of the stories that we tell a lot. And this is, Buildxact is a company that started in Australia. We've launched in Australia 10 years ago. And now we're just now coming to the US. So we've been in the US the last 14 months.
Now I got to ask, have you gotten to go to Australia to see home office yet?
I have been in Australia, but not for Buildxact.
It's early on. It's only been since October. Give it some time.
Right. Ease into it. That's right.
Yeah. Baby steps, like we said.
So
let's talk. Yeah, let's dive into that. Okay. So Australia, 10 years, and it's just recently migrated to the US. So, and I've done a little bit of research, or done my best to do some research, gone online, and the website actually looks very clean as far as, it just seems like it incorporates everything. It seems like it incorporates the builder, the dealer, the sub. I mean, but that's about all I know. I know probably not even enough to be dangerous, Jennifer. So why don't you give me just the full gamut of what it is?
Yeah, so it's a really holistic construction project management software. It can start with a prospect and move them all the way out to a finished project. So there's a CRM component for the builder and the dealer. So they can have all their customers listed there. They can manage communication with their customers there. They can do then upload plans to do takeoffs. They can do estimates and quotes, brand them, and then after the job is won, they can do scheduling and timelines. So that, and the scheduling and timelines is very comprehensive. So you can bring in all of your contractors and subcontractors. And when the scheduling changes or anything, there are automatic notifications that go out to all the parties involved. This shipment was shifted 3 days. So then it just dings them all and lets them know what the new schedule is. And it's, in a clear chart. Then the quoting process is branded. So if a builder sends out a quote to a homeowner or a prospect, they can put on their logo, they can use their own type font, they can do all those things. So it is a very, very comprehensive. And as I was saying before, it is the only software that will connect the builder and the dealer systems, the builder quote to the dealer ERP, so that you're getting that accurate cost in that moment. And then for a dealer, they can, when they have their customers in there, they can set up tiered pricing, and all of that takes effect when the builder, when the builder is talking to the dealer system. So it's very comprehensive. Some of the things that I'm working on that I'm very excited about are, more programs to help elevate the industry. So I was just nominated to the board of the Skilled Trades Alliance, which, prompted that story. And, but I'm working on workforce development. So how do we get this tool into the hands of folks who are entering the industry? So there are a couple different programs where we're giving out subscriptions. We're training these people, giving them a pathway, and then also sustainability. So I am working with some industry leaders on product recipes and assemblies, which is also can be set up by the dealer in the system. But product recipes and assemblies that represent sustainable solutions. So for instance, if you were thinking about an all-electric home where all-electric is now code, which several places are going to now, or net zero, or whatever the case may be, we're putting together assemblies inside of the software so that a builder can easily say, doesn't have to be the expert. They can, it de-risks it for them, and they can just say, I need this type of solution based on the local building code, and then they can order that as part of their floor plan. And that hopefully will extend to resiliency solutions. So like for high water areas, flooding areas, or fire areas where there are a lot of fires. So really want to extend that and offer builders, the small builders, solutions that help them do what they do best, which is build the home, and take away some of the tasks that are that are kind of muddy it for them and make it way more difficult for them.
Oh, absolutely. And you've got to, when you talk about like your codes and all that stuff, I mean, my goodness, I mean, just keeping up with that is a full-time job, especially if you're a builder that is building in different areas and different regions and stuff, just knowing what the local codes are and stuff.
Yeah.
And I like how you said that earlier on that it integrates with the Buildxact system. Are you guys working with any of the other point of sale systems right now, or is Buildxact the only one?
We are. And I can't list them for you, but we have tons of different integrations. in terms of point of sale, another ERP one that we're working on right now. And then I also mentioned that we are working on integrating with Salesforce. So that would be another,
Okay.
yeah.
And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Who is your customer?
So we have multiple customers. The builder is a subscriber and the dealer is a subscriber. So they both can be subscribers, and contractors can be subscribers as well. But yeah, we have different tiers of subscriptions. Not very many. It's not overly complicated, but different tiers of subscriptions based on what role you play in the project, and then also on how you want to use the software.
Okay. So, in an example of, let's say your customer on a project is the builder. How do they go about saying, okay, I want to make sure that my suppliers are utilizing this and also my subs are utilizing it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're working on that right now. We're just trying to build out the network. And if you're familiar with what is called the network effect, that's basically what we're trying to create. If you think of there are some companies that have created this, that are best examples of that. So like an Airbnb or Facebook even. So the more people we get in our network, the bit larger it grows, then the more value is created. So as we add a dealer and they add their builders, then the more value is then available to those dealers and that dealer and those builders. So the dealer at that point, who has a lot of builders on the system, is then able to see what is ordered, how much they're able then to forecast better, stock better, manage inventory better. So it's something that we're really trying to educate the industry about. And then we also hope to use the data that we collect to help the industry at large, and to help builders and dealers understand. I mean, we're looking at how many quotes are coming through, how many are accepted. And we're then going to create a sales program to help people get to higher win rates and understand where do most of these projects fall out, and how do we as an industry become better at doing these things. So it's fun.
And it sounds like you guys are really working at it from every angle. I mean, you're not specializing just in one sector of the industry. It's amazing to hear talk about how you're incorporating all of it: the bidding side, the sales side, the project management side. Because you look at a lot of these different programs out there, and some of them I've looked at are very laser focused on just one section of the industry, to where it might be just the project management side, to say, this is where our focus is, but yet they don't incorporate any of the other components of the entire project. What areas are you missing, I guess? Is there any areas that you don't cover, that your product does not service when it comes to a project?
So there are, a couple areas, and actually that we're tapping into now and looking at how do we develop them. For one, it would be the architecture space. So, dealers and many builders rely on an architect through the process. And so, how are we building that into the system? We're developing a program right now so that a builder actually could go in and find a template for a home, and offer that to their prospective customer, and it would be right there in the software. So they don't have to. They could pull in an architect who's in a local area, or if they wanted to meet face to face, or they could use something that is available that is an architect remote. The architect would get a small license fee, And but again, we would be able to tie in different elements that maybe are really important to the builder or the buyer, such as floor plans that are net zero, or the different elements that I was bringing up before. So a fire resilient home, um, just plug and play, have the plan available, and be able to offer that, and that would be loaded with the product list. So once they have that floor plan, they can just order the product list that's connected to the dealers. They have, I mean, that's just minutes for them to figure out what the cost is.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, before it would be connecting to how many different people and how many back and forth and so on and so forth. So I think it's really exciting to think of where that process is headed, and how much efficiency can be created.
Yeah, just by streamlining all the communication. And I love the idea of the network because truly our industry, when you look at all the different people involved in a project, it really is a network. It's not linear. It's not like it starts and just goes down the line. I mean, your builders got to know, your subs have to know what the architect has planned. It's not like it starts at one point and yes, you got to start the plan somewhere, and then it's got to go to get bid, and then it's got to go to other things. But everybody still has to be connected to be able to communicate because, for instance, let's say that the builder gets a plan from the architect, and then he passes it off to his supplier and says, "Here, I need you to start quoting these materials." Well, then maybe there's a product they don't have or isn't available, but they have a substitute. Well, then they now have to go back to the builder. Then the builder has to go back to the architect for the architect to spec it out. Well, if you've got it to where it's a network connection, they can just submit it, put the information in, and then the appropriate parties can then take it from there to where it's all networked versus just a linear communication piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is how much of this business is by referral. It's a lot. And how many of those interactions with customers are ruined because of that lack of communication or just inaccurate information? I think when we give more transparency to product availability, to just the process in general, and you can communicate so easily with your customers, you are building that network effect, and you just, as a builder, you get more referrals, you get more business, and we've seen the dealers that are adding builders, that because of the ease of the system, and because they can also create, I think I was talking about those recipes or those assemblies,
Mhm.
um, they're getting 49% more of the builder business because the builders are in there using the system, are able to see what they need to order, and they're doing it all in one place. So whereas previously a project may have been, they might have a great relationship with you and want to order from you. So they give you the initial order, but the project is 100 miles away. So they get on the job site and they see that they don't have this, and that. Well, they go to the nearest place that's 5 miles away. So you're losing all that business. Where if you have it in a system and you're using that technology or those assemblies or the recipes to create orders where you're not forgetting anything, then you're gaining that much more business.
Absolutely, and a lot of times it's the small things that are truly the, the components there you need to keep those margins up on those projects.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting where the margin really sneaks in.
And it's critical, let's face it. I mean, I remember years ago, I saw a deal that said, and I'm sure there's been some shifts and changes, but that said that the building materials industry was the second lowest margin industry.
Really?
Second only to the grocery industry. But if you think about it, I mean, you have to have food and you have to have a roof over your head. I mean, those are two things that are necessities of life. So you have a lot of stability in those industries. Therefore, you have a lot of competition in those industries, which continues to drive the margins down. Now, again, this was probably 10, 15 years ago, but absolutely. I was shocked when I read that. And I thought, well, it kind of makes sense.
I'm still kind of shocked by it. Um, and the other thing is that there's so many different that it's things are passed off to so many different people who are trying to get the margin, their own margin, that, it's not one person or one group or one entity who's getting that profit. So that also makes it a little bit more complicated.
Absolutely, because when you look at the margin, I mean, you're probably a snapshot of what that dealer has,
Mhm.
not necessarily the manufacturer or the distributor, because you would have the manufacturer, the distributor, and then the dealer, and they're all taking a little piece. Now, if it went straight from the manufacturer straight to the job site, now obviously that margin is going to be much greater, but how many of our products flow through the supply chain that way? They just don't.
Yeah, right.
One of the things I remember, and I heard this, it wasn't that long ago, it's just a couple of years ago. Now, this was a guy out of the Kansas City market. I don't remember what system he was using, but I remember talking to a guy, and he told me, he said, and he was a contract, a general contractor, he was a builder, and he's flat out said, he said, I won't use subs if they can't use my project management system. Period. He said, you
Mm.
know what? He said, that's the way that everything gets done on my job sites. That's how everything gets stayed on track. He said, and if they can't use it, I tell them up front that they are not an option for me. And I
That's
thought, wow.
interesting. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it makes sense because
yeah.
how much time would he waste having to constantly contact people? Okay, you know what? Kind of trying to call the drywallers because the painters want to know when they can get in. Well, you don't know when the drywallers had it scheduled. So this way, it's all, like you said, that communication, that network is all there, so everybody can log in, see where the project's at, what stage it's at. They can see when the electricians are done, so the insulation guys can come in, and then the drywall guys can come in. It just flowed everything. Took it really basically out of his not necessarily off of his plate, but it took it to where it wasn't his responsibility anymore. And I was like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, for sure.
Jennifer, it's been wonderful. It's been a pleasure, and you reach out anytime you need anything.
Okay. And vice versa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is the Building the Future podcast. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please like and share. You can find out more at our website, www.buildingthefuturepodcast.com. Together we are building the future.